Larry Harvey is here. He is the co-founder of the Burning Man Festival in Nevada. It started way back in 1986. Burning Man has grown into the largest outdoor art event in North America. Last year, it hosted nearly 68,000 participants, along with hundreds of original works, performances, and theme camps. Here is a glimpse from the documentary Spark, a Burning Man story, which came out last year.
We arrived out at this vast plain. I took a stick and I drew a line on the ground. And I said, on the other side of this line, everything will be different. And everything has been different.
The place is an idea. That's so powerful and so alluring that people will go to the worst place in the world just to get a little taste of it.
It's very disconcerting in a one-week period of time to realize that everything that you've done in your entire life could potentially be wrong.
I walked away from Burning Man going, I need to learn how to weld because I've got ideas. I still have a long ways to go.
Burning Man is a great venue to build giant stuff and blow it up.
You people here today are the people from this moment on that creates the framework and the cauldron that will cook their soul.
In order for us to survive on this planet, we have to engage thousands, millions of people. We have to do it. We're giving our lives to it. It's that important.
Meet Larry Harvey. I am pleased to have him here at this table for the first time. Welcome.
It's my pleasure.
Mine. So what's the idea that will bring so many people to not the most attractive place or the easiest place?
No, it's not easy at all, though an international city in its own right, it's a wilderness survival experience.
Well, what brings them?
I think it must be because they find something there that isn't readily available elsewhere, a certain sort of authenticity. It's a little like what Daniel Pink talks about. He talks about motivating people in the workplace, but you can apply it to what we do. He says people need to experience autonomy, mastery, and a sense of purpose for their life to be meaningful. Autonomy,
mastery, and a sense of purpose.
That's right, and that in a sense that's very much what we do. We tend to formulate it. I formulated it a little metaphysically. I am, we are, it is, but it's the same arc of meaning. The sense that you're real in yourself, and that what you have should and must be shared with others. And that your abilities, your gifts can merge with the world, and the world will answer to that. And lastly, that old-fashioned idea of transcendence, and that you're connected to something much larger than you are, and that you can do all three at the same time, and that together, we think, makes a whole life, and we call it an ethos, and we've described it in 10 principles that we follow.
Tell me how it began.
It began as in the impulse of an afternoon. I called a friend and said, let's burn a man. And he said, what, would you repeat that statement? And so we went down to the beach. We took our...
You were doing what at the time?
What was I doing at the time? I'd gone through a series of just placeholding jobs that afforded me as much free time as I could. It had become part of a bohemian milieu. Right. And in which whimsy amounts to an iron will. And so it seemed like a plausible thing to do. And so we took it down to the beach and we set it on fire, and instantly our numbers tripled because a burning human form, if you put one up at the Republican National Convention, the people would say down in front. It would so compel.
Yes.
And it was very accessible. Yeah. there wasn't any need to explain it, and we haven't explained it to this day. When they ask us what it means, we say you have to achieve that through your engagement, to your actions, what you are. We won't.
And who
we
came?
won't tell you. Who originally?
Yeah. Curiosity seekers?
Originally, it was a small group it was in the underground culture of San Francisco. In San Francisco, it has distinction as an international city. It's that for that fact. No. So they came, and it was a group called the Cacophony Society who came out there in the first year. We were on a beach. We moved to the desert, and they were devoted to guerrilla theater, appropriating public places for performances, that kind of thing. And in that desert, where there's so much nothing, the least gesture had a world-engendering power. It was any photographer's dream, any artist's dream to have a canvas like that.
Yeah.
And then it just spread through word of mouth for a few years. Then our numbers doubled and redoubled, and now, of course, we're at
70,000 or
yeah. Near
from
that.
70,000 people.
68 was the last figure. But we're working with the BLM. We have a good relationship with them, the Bureau of Land Management.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And we think that we can increase the population in a way that will serve everyone.
And then explain to us, because I mean, some people have heard of this, but most people don't understand it. I mean, what are the rules? What is the organizing principle? For example, you don't buy things there.
No, we've decommodified.
Yeah, exactly.
It's odd. There's no advertising. We don't do vending. Yeah. Any of those things that are normal. You can't really use your cell phone.
Right.
And so it's a retreat from the normal world. That's for sure. And while you're there. Well, we have 10 principles. They emerged from our own experience, and they describe our culture.
They're interesting principles, yeah.
Radical self-expression.
Right.
Which means you just have to decide what makes you real and put it out there. And radical self-reliance, but at the same time, communal effort. Yeah, and that founded on the idea that you define yourself in this world through your relationships with others, and through. I spoke of that experience of mastery, the sense of flow in which you work with others, and they in turn work with you, and finally that creates a kind of community reality that makes you feel that you belong.
I mean, people came who wanted to create art.
Yes, and art, and we're the largest interactive art exhibition in the world, but we have a saying that people come for the art very often, but they stay for the community, and if you look at the art, if you look beyond, there's a lot of spectacle and a lot of very, very ambitious things that require armies of artists to do, and they're very organized, self-organized, and but if you look beyond that, you see that that it says a lot about social organization. In order to do that, they have to fundraise. We give out grants, but they fundraise, and that creates huge communities of people contributing to a work of art that's going to appear at the event. And it's a funny thing. All these years.
Yeah.
We never said this. This is just culture in operation. It was never spoken. No artist or artist group has ever signed their work. Isn't that extraordinary?
That's amazing.
We never told them that. We did say...
They didn't feel necessary to sign.
Well, we did say, and this is maybe the most essential idea, we did say this is devoted. It came out of a bohemian world where people actually are very generous about giving things. You go to an artist studio and your eye keeps dropping on that one thing. Finally, the artist will say, "You want it?
Yeah,
I'm done with it. I made it already. I'm doing something new." And
the joy of creation was mine. Now you can take it.
That's right. That's exactly. We took that attitude and we plucked that out of Bohemia, and then we organized an entire city around it. And so it's devoted to acts of giving, which do not contemplate a return. We just taken transactional economics out of it.
Yeah. Well, some people say, now here's what's interesting. Some say it's therefore a kind of anti-capitalist coming together. And yet at the same time, the people who come are some of the most successful capitalists in America who come for the experience. Take Larry Page, Sergey Brin, take the high-tech community, take all kinds of people in the venture capital business who come there for something else. Community, autonomy.
That's right. Well, we never said we were anti-capitalist.
I know you didn't say it, but I mean, people said
we did say that we didn't. That we did say that we think we need to critique and get away from consumerism.
Yeah, right.
Which is another proposition altogether, and
everything is about buying something.
Everything is about buying something. In fact, your entire identity is invested in what you consume. Right. And we said that's not an authentic life. And it looks like we were right, because people are coming from all over the globe to see what that feels like.
Yes.
And so there's an empirical way of looking at it. We have a lot of people from Silicon Valley who've been coming out from early on. But then in a way, we're a little like them. I don't want to overdo the analogy, but nonetheless, they work on a frontier. At Google, I know they put aside time that let people
20%.
Pursue their own.
That's right. 20% of your day.
That's right.
You can go off and do something entirely of your own.
Autonomy and mastery. Right. They do that.
Yeah, right.
And so they would naturally looked at us as cousins, in a sense, and we were on the cover of Wired magazine years ago.
Right. The Bible for some of them.
And then people from that industry began piling into the event. And then they said, they're going to ruin it, but they've said every migration is going to ruin it, and it just enriches the environment,
Do you get some feedback that people say, changed my life? That somehow they were infused with values, ideas, relationships that made them rethink what they were doing with their life?
Incessantly.
Incessantly.
Yeah. It sounds like a conversion experience, in religious terms, though when they say we're a cult, and it's said too, that we reply that it's a self-service cult. You wash your own brain. And
you do what?
You wash your own brain.
Yes.
Self-reliance, radical self-reliance.
Right. What's the cargo cult?
I do the themes, and it took the phenomena of the cargo cults in Melanesia, in which the indigenous people were so disoriented and impressed by the.
It's a great story.
But the British and the Americans occupied the islands, built airstrips.
During World War II.
Yes.
Right.
And the only explanation they could come up with for it was a supernatural one, and so they looked at them as avatars, perhaps ancestors that come from the skies, and so when they left, they began.
And then one day they were gone.
One day they were gone, and so the people who lived there began building airstrips and planes out of bamboo, thinking through sympathetic magic to attract the return.
Yes.
I just said isn't that the way we live today? We don't know where anything's made. We don't know where it comes from. Yeah. It seems that they say it's all stored in the cloud. And we live on our cell phones, carrying them around like totemic objects, and really we know the way we live isn't sustainable, and we're just hoping that more cargo will save us. And we really wanted to suggest that acquiring more things probably isn't the path, but we didn't. There's usually a moral.
Do you want to be a proselytizer?
Well, we want to affect the world.
You want to what? Change the world?
Yes, we do. Yeah. We've just transferred the event. It's been privately held all these years, by myself and my 5 partners. And we just surrendered ownership, and we've given it to a nonprofit that has been created, the Burning Man Project. And its aim is to disseminate our culture at a global scale.
So there'll be Burning Mans everywhere.
Well, that would just be the beginning. We look at our event as an immersive experience that brings change into people's lives individually, helps them to form relationships socially once they leave. There are communities, Burning Man communities on 5 continents now. And we didn't tell them to do this. They did it. And then we just organized to, help it to keep happening. And we imagine that just as a beginning, emulating our city, creating immersive experiences of another way you can be, an ethos. Globally, would have tremendous leverage on events. And then when you get down to the granular level, we're a little like Silicon Valley in this too. We imagine that we create a platform, but it's the people who create the apps. We create the context. It's the people that create the content.
Where'd you get all these ideas?
Oh, for me personally, it was being raised by Dust Bowl immigrants who my father was born in 1899. They came west in a Model 8 Ford. Worked as migrant workers. I knew a lot about self-reliance, but then coming to San Francisco when I was young, and then later to live there, I've been there many years. I walked into this bohemian scene I'd always dreamed of, and that had a big effect. The principles themselves weren't written until 2004. Yeah. And we never had an ideology. We don't have one yet. We didn't start out with one. It's not outside of your experience. It all emerged from what we did and the heart and finally the minds we brought to regard the result of our actions. And the community isn't very tolerant of central authority, but they just inhale these things. So that there must be a real resonance there.
Of course it is. Here, take a look at this. This is an image of the Man on Fire from the 2013 festival.
Well, it's standing on a flying saucer, the man is. That was cargo cult.
Right.
The aliens had come in a flying saucer, and they were going to give us consumer items and save us.
The next one is the Temple of Juno, the art temple featured at the Burning Man Festival in 2012, created by David Best. Look at that.
A good friend of mine, and he's built many of these, and then other people have jumped in, and now it's an inevitability. Everyone expects.
And how long does it take them to do this?
Oh, about 3 weeks.
Yeah. The next is the Trojan Horse, one of the largest independent projects. The Burn Wall Street, the multi-building art installation by Out of Van Danger, which was engulfed in flames at the conclusion of Burning Man in 2012. The next is the Anglerfish art car, which was created by Mark Whitman.
Art is our public transportation
yes,
system.
Exactly. The next is the Chatterbox art car, which was created by Fernando Barroso. The Church Trap, another large-scale interactive art installation piece from 2013 by Rebecca Waite.
I love this piece.
You like this?
The church is supported by a giant stick.
Yeah, I can see it.
And when the pews are inside, so it's precariously perched like a mousetrap, like a very primitive mousetrap. So you can interpret it from there.
Larry Page, CEO of Google, he proposed a tech Burning Man.
I remember, yeah.
Yes, I bet you do. This was in May 2013, keynote speech. Here's what he said. We don't want our world to change too fast, but maybe we could set apart a piece of the world. I like going to Burning Man, for example, an environment where people can change new things. I think as technologists, we should have some safe places where we can try out new things and figure out the effect on society, with the effect on people without having to deploy it to the whole world. It's like what it is a laboratory.
It is a laboratory, and the interesting thing is there's technology and there's art, and then there's this fascinating interzone where art and technology are confabulating with one another. So then people take drones and they say, well, how can we turn drones into art? And there's a lot of that. It's very cross-disciplinary, and I think the thing about our art especially is that it is interactive. That means that not until people act in relation to it and involve themselves with it, it actually elicits actions from the audience. It's not done until that happens. And what that does is it makes art do something that it ceased to do in the modern era after a while. It generates community around itself. And that's a new standard for public art, really. Art that requires community for its creation, engenders community in its advent, that links people together. You know, statues of culture heroes don't do that anymore. But this is, we have another organization that's placing art in cities around the world.
What's that called?
The Black Rock Arts Foundation.
Right.
And we're going to fold it into the Burning Man project too, and then we'll be done with
There are
that.
those who say some, maybe only one, but it's this idea, as it always is, when someone comes up with a great idea and it grows and it gets bigger and it grows and people who you wouldn't expect necessarily to be at the founding come and make it part of who they are and what they are, and it becomes, in somebody's judgment, too mainstream. Are you aware of that and know that you don't care?
Well,
it's a false claim.
I agree that there's
danger.
What can happen over time in any institution is that it'll cease to be a matter of discovery and become something that's merely received.
Yeah.
But I think, of course, what Burning Man produces is a culture and a community, and I think that as long as we design the new institution as meshed with that culture, as being what it wants to manifest, as animated by that, that's really an interesting challenge. We want to last for 100 years, and so we have to find a way that the Burning Man can reinvent itself, and the institutions of Burning Man can keep reinventing themselves and rediscovering things as we did as founders. But as far as it being mainstream,
Can't imagine you.
Well, I don't know what by mainstream, I guess they mean mass-produced, mass-consumed, denatured, inauthentic, things like that.
Yeah.
And but we've always been the reason we are have drawn so many people is that we represent the virtual antithesis of that. That's why we seem so novel and attractive to people. That's the very essence of our success. So I'm not really worried about that happening.
There's also finally this: while you become global and huge and big and all of that, but I'm interested in this initiative, the small town initiative. What is it?
Well, it started in Nevada, and a state, in these economic times, particularly challenged.
Right.
And my people originally came from a very small town in Nebraska, and we thought that it would be a good gesture. We also thought it might help the towns economically, because people would come from afar to see the elephant or
That's
whatever
exactly right.
it was.
No.
And so we run as I say, a sort of international city, but we thought that it ought to be relevant for small towns as well, and when we started out, we were a little hamlet out there. After all, we were a little town.
Yes,
we haven't forgotten where we came from.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you. Thank you.